we are gonna go on ahead and call to order the Ralston Public Schools Board of Education for October 14th of 2024. Please rise as you are able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Let's start at the top, shall we? We have a board member who is not amongst us tonight. She is celebrating senior night with her volleyball player. So I would take a motion, y'all.
Motion to excuse Samantha Wiley from tonight's meeting. Second?
All right, we're gonna give it to Carrie just because she spoke up. What up? Oh, all right, we're gonna give it to Liz and Carrie, y'all. And go ahead and call the vote, please.
Mrs. Coomer,
Aye.
Mrs. Hupp,
Aye.
Mrs. Richards,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Aye.
Ms. Rotary.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Motion passes, and we hope Samantha has a wonderful night celebrating her senior. I can't believe she's got a senior already. All right, y'all, consent agenda, I would take a motion, please.
Motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All right, we're gonna give it to Liz and Miss Katie had the second. Please call the vote.
Mrs. Richards,
Aye?
Mrs. Hupp,
Aye.
Ms. Rotary,
Aye.
Mrs. Coomer,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you, board. All right, y'all, board development, we had a lot going on in the last couple of weeks, so I am gonna hit the highlights. I'm sure a lot of us have the same things on our list, so. This past week, Jason and I met at Seymour during the parent-teacher conferences, which was super fun. I got to see like the building all bustling and full of people and the classrooms full, and it made my little heart happy. Let's see, we did the area membership meeting. Thank you for everyone being there. We always get a fantastic photo of us, and happy number 4, everybody. Board of Excellence, great job. All right. Then we had the alumni dinner, the homecoming game. I rocked my 25-year reunion, so good job, class of 99. We also had the Mockingbird ceremony, which was very well done. Thank you guys for having that planned. And thank you, Liz, for manning the microphone for the board. We appreciate you. And then I had a maybe meeting, and this morning I called a legislative committee meeting, kind of on accident, but on purpose, to talk about the interim studies. So we'll go over those when we get to like government stuff and things. That's enough for me. Miss Liz, what you got going on?
Okay, a lot of what she said. And then congrats to the RHS band on great performances and good luck to upcoming competitions. Happy to see our FFA chapter growing and selling poinsettias. So if anybody hasn't ordered some, now's your chance. Looking forward to the 9 to 5 play at RHS and also the ribbon cutting at Seymour on Wednesday.
Yeah,
That's about it.
got that on my book already. All right, thank you, Mrs. Coomer. Mrs. Birdie, what's going on in your world?
Just a call out to Ashley Nilgard and Jim Frederick. Thank you both for your efforts in organizing a successful golf tournament and also the Alumni Awards dinner. Congratulations again to Dr. Richard Jackson and Dr. John Gamble. Both events were wonderful, so we appreciate that for the foundation that supports our students. So thank you. I'm looking forward to Thursday of this week. Fiserv, Women's Impact Network, I'm on the steering committee there, and we sponsor the UNO Code Crush event. So we have Ms. Christine Rudemsky and some of our students attending on Thursday, so I'll be excited to see them in person and welcome them to Fiserv.
All right, thank you very much. All right,
All right, I
Mrs.
have to make my
Kraus,
notes, I don't forget.
hit us.
I appreciate Robin doing the follow-up from 3 weeks ago now, because I was like, I know he does a lot of things, but I don't remember what they are. I hope I don't go first, so thanks for having our back on that. Let's see, so I have, kind of one of my job/board crossovers. I'm taking Seymour kindergartners to Oak Park on Wednesday afternoon. If you want to have a real fun time in the woods, you can come with us. It's really fun. So we're taking Seymour kids, and then I'm actually meeting with Melanie and Casey on Wednesday morning after the Women Coming to Seymour to plan a nature event for Bloomfield. She asked me if I would do K-4, so I don't know exactly what she has in mind, but I said yes. So we're gonna look at something with Bloomfield in the park behind Bloomfield in November, early November, and again in the spring, so that's really fun. Fall Fest yesterday was awesome. Shout out to Jim who was there. I was hoping maybe Jim would take the night off today after being at a school event on a Sunday. But Jim was there and I'm sure others, we kind of rolled in a little bit late, so I didn't have to stay for a long time. Kids had a great time. We had tons of volunteers. The band, we actually were on the hay rack ride with the volunteers.
Oh, you went with the kids?
At the end, yeah, well, we were like, oh, we're the only ones with the hay rack, and then all of a sudden, all the kids came up, so it was great. They had cookies, and it was lots of fun. So the band was there, Educators Rising, FFA,
Senior class.
there was
Senior class folks and
one other group I can't remember now.
the ambassadors.
Yes, Ambassador, yeah. So they had a good showing. The kids were wonderful. It was a really nice event. So I appreciate that and everyone that makes into it. And then I have to give a shout out on days like today to Little Rams for providing skate care to our children when there is no school. My child went to Fontenelle, had a great time, and it's really hard for families sometimes when school is closed. So it was great to have Little Rams open, and I appreciate those teachers from Little Rams who do not get the day off like a lot of other people do, and they watch our little ones who are not quite old enough to be home alone yet. So thanks, Little Rams.
We're going to the pumpkin patch tomorrow.
They are, yes, yeah, and I'm taking the day off work and doing the pumpkin patch too, so we'll probably end up merging with them at some point, I bet, so great time for Alice.
Well, you have fun with that, so. All right, Mrs. F, what's going on?
They did such a good job, I don't have to say.
Yeah.
We're just getting an amen on that, all right, good. Okay, we are down to the superintendent's report, Mr. Buckingham.
Okay, it's been 3 weeks since we've met, so it seems like a long time. You're right, it is a little bit longer than the normal amount of time between board meetings. So I had the ability to get out and see some things I hadn't yet this year. Got to sit next to our delightful board member who's not in attendance tonight, but sit next to Samantha and we watched the Plattsmouth volleyball game down in Plattsmouth, so that was a nice experience. Also got to see our softball team play Omaha North. That was a nice experience too. A lot of kids got in and got a chance to play in that game. We did have the really busy week where we had a board meeting and we had the alumni banquet. We had the NASB meeting. Congratulations to our board again on being a board of excellence. Very well deserved. In addition, we had GNSA meeting down in Lincoln. We had a bridge board meeting. Mockingbird ribbon cutting, which is a great event. Thanks again, Liz, for speaking at that. And in case we lost it in the shuffle, we also moved another school. So we had Seymour move that took place between the last time we met and this time. That marks our 9th full school move in the last 18 months. And I am retiring from that aspect of the job, so we will not ever do that again. So,
That's a deal.
yeah, no. So anyway, so glad that that's in the rear view. It's so good as the weather's starting to get to a point where it turns colder to have everybody back in their permanent homes and not have to worry about making those moves with people. And then also get into winter. So great that everyone's back in. I think pretty much people are pretty satisfied and content with where they're at. Kids certainly enjoyed getting into Seymour, and the staff probably did more than they did even. So glad that that's in the rearview mirror. Okay, financial report.
Roll along.
Okay, so financial report, looking at September financials. Pretty good news to share, again, as we look at it, specifically if we go down to the bottom line, if we look at where we sat a year ago compared to where we sit now, we're about 850,000 to the plus of where we were. So we're at that point where, remember again, those cash balance numbers are gonna start to come back down again. We save up for this and then, we'll have a month like this, for example, September is one where we don't receive state aid. So those numbers that we have in cash on hand, they'll start to go down a little bit, but we should have plenty of cushion in there for us to get through without having to look at a line of credit or anything else to supplement where we're at. So again, this is kind of a product of the hard work that the board has done over the course of the last decade or so to get that cash balance up to a number where we don't have to start talking in September about how we're gonna make payroll in January. So good news on that front. We are sitting pretty well with that. Couple things of note as we go to the next page then, if we look at where we sit 1 month into this fiscal year, 8.3% if everything was equal. You can see the percentages off to the side. Obviously, our revenue is not gonna keep pace with what our expenses are at this time of year. But again, we'll catch that up once we get into February, March, and April. One good thing of note, we did come in a little bit short on what our budget was last year for local district taxes. That number's a little bit higher than what we would have anticipated at this point. That's just basically the recovery of people paying their taxes a little bit late and the county getting it to us a little bit late. So not necessarily a windfall that we came on, but this is just that correction for those that didn't have their taxes paid on time to the county to get that out to us last month. A couple other things of note as we look in, again, state aid, that number is 0 for the month. We expect that. This is one of the 2 months where we don't receive any payment from the state. And then a couple other things to point out here on the expenditure side. Again, if all things were equal, we'd be at 8.3%. You can see that our numbers are, and Aaron's done a good job of budgeting, our numbers are short of that, which means that we're on pace and probably a little bit ahead of where we anticipated being based on our budget that we have for this year. So a couple of things that also make me feel good, particularly about our building projects and things we've got going on. If we look at operation and maintenance of plant, those numbers both are behind what our budget was set. So again, good news. That means that the work that we've done in putting new things and new systems into place in all these buildings, that's paid off in that we don't have near the maintenance costs or near the time invested in trying to keep our buildings up and running. That should improve even more once we take on the high school project coming up here, hopefully starting as early as January. A couple other things of note as we go through building fund, still sitting with about 35 million in that amount. That number's gonna be spent down as we go. It was not a huge check this time around, but once we start kicking into the high school and we get some of those things, some of those projects rolling, we'll start to see that number decline a little bit more. And we'll talk about that in the next attachment here as far as where we sit for bond projects. Bond fund, just a little under 6 million, that's in a good spot. Reminder, our next payment comes up in December. So we're in a good position that we can make that payment on both sections of our bond. And then last thing that I point out with our financial reports for the month, if we look at depreciation fund, that number again is also healthy. That's with this year's purchase of technology already put in place. We're sitting at about 3.2 million in there. So all told, balances are really healthy. We're sitting in a pretty good spot financially. Bond projects are coming in. We'll be excited to see what our bids are when they come in from our different subcontractors. Right now, the word that we're getting is that it's gonna be pretty favorable for our school district. So there are some major projects that were in the works that got canceled for some other entities out there. So there's a little bit more hunger to be competitive in the bidding that has taken place for this high school project. So as soon as we get that information back, our goal is to have that done and have the GMP to the board, hopefully sometime in November, and then we can, early November, hopefully. Our goal is to try and get all that bidding done before the election, just because there's a little bit of uncertainty that exists with the election, and that tends to make people sharpen their pencils a little bit more when they put their bids in. So, so we're in pretty good shape on that end of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what our proposed GMP from White's is. Questions on the financials for the month? Okay, one other thing I'd point out, I put the bond expenditure tracker on there, and just to go through it real quick, where we sit with it. Again, this is a combination of all those different funds. This is the bond fund plus the ESSER's money that we had put in there. So if we look at what we had budgeted, you can see that 90 million number. Well, that's bigger than the 83.75 that we passed. But that number is a little bit closer to being the actual amount that we have of funds available for our building projects. So some of that is selling those bonds at a premium. Some of it is the 3 million plus that we got from ESSER's, and some of it is we just, quite honestly, they got into a bidding war on our second set of bonds, so we ended up doing very well on the amount of premium that we received from that. So if we look at it overall, having that 90 million, almost 91 million number, that's pretty helpful for us in trying to make sure that we keep the promises that we made initially, and that we're able to complete the scope of work that we said we were going to up at RHS. Robin visited with me a little bit earlier as a part of our Monday meetings, and had asked a question, hey, can we go back and see that original presentation that we gave to to the community, just to see how are we doing so far, and I think we've done a pretty good job of meeting exactly what we said we were gonna do with the projects and the scope that we've had up to this point, so pretty positive on that front. I think we're gonna come through and we're gonna be in decent shape. I don't wanna jinx us just yet, but we may be at a spot where we can take that original high school scope and maybe look at some of those other projects that we wanted to do, but we didn't include initially, just because of the fear of the cost of being involved, so. With that, think of things like replacing the ceiling in the high school gym. That would be one of the projects that would, I'd really like for us to be able to do, but we're not gonna get it done for free. That's, quite honestly, you wouldn't see me up there in a lift taking that ceiling down, so we're gonna pay somebody to do that, quite a bit of money.
Please don't do that, Jason.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, we're sitting in a pretty good spot with that, and, you know, we'll keep moving forward as I get more information about where we land in our high school. Certainly, I'll share that out to our subcommittee and then ultimately to the board as a whole. Questions on that piece of it?
Jason, you brought up the community meetings, and I was thinking that would it be a good idea for us to have a follow-up community meeting or two to show everybody our progress and what's happened with all the schools?
You know what, I haven't really considered that. We've had great attendance at our open houses that we've done for every building, and I think that has met at least a portion of the appetite that people have had to see, you know, what have you done with their tax dollars. But as you know, I'm about accountability and about transparency, so if that's something that we think that we need to do for our community, I know Jim publishes stuff in our parent newsletters. We'll have something that'll come out in our annual report too, that will highlight the actions and the things that we've done with the bond money we have. But if we wanna look at having an in-person meeting, I'm not opposed to doing that either. Quite honestly, I wouldn't mind talking about some of that a little bit, just because we're proud of the work that we've all collectively been able to do here.
I know, something to think about.
But I can tell you this, I'm continually amazed at the amount of community turnout that we get when we have these open houses. I mean, Mockingbird was over 500 easily. Meadows, we had to have close to that when Meadows opened up. It's just been, it's been a neat experience to see that many people and people that don't necessarily have immediate connections to the school anymore. You know, the kids went there 20 years ago and they're coming back just because they're interested in it. So.
Sure.
So that part has been very enjoyable.
All right, any other questions? Excellent, let's move into government relations, shall we? Jason, you wanna come?
Okay, so we had a meeting today of our legislative committee, and topic was the interim studies that are coming up here pretty soon. There are several that are specific to education, and we just kind of went through and addressed some of those today. There's a range of different senators that have asked for these interim studies. Some of them are specifically on things like AQuest, and does that assessment system, is that the correct one for the state? Is that the direction we want to go? There's an interim study on privacy, meaning some of the technology that's employed in school districts, like biometrics for lunch accounts, vape detectors, video surveillance, having trackers on computers that we have for one-to-one. Those are things that are interim study topics that we discussed today. I don't know that any of us at this point have a whole lot of clarity of what the intent is for these interim studies, but there are things that are being thrown out there and there are things that are gathering information. You know, again, one of the things that I don't quite understand is why an outgoing senator that's term limited would want to have an interim study on something. They won't be around for the next session to you know, talk about any of this information that was gathered in the study, but yet here we are, and we've got someone that's doing that down there, and Joe has promised us he's gonna keep a pretty close eye on what's happening down at the interim studies. I don't know that we talked a whole lot about whether it was invited testimony only or if it was open to the public. Sometimes they can set those with different parameters in the interim study anyway, so. More to come on that. It looks like the first set we have coming up is November 7th, I think. November 1st, yeah. So we'll have another board meeting in place prior to those interim studies coming up. But if anything develops with that, certainly we'll we'll share that out with the board.
And all of those are live streamed on computer, so.
In case you want a fun afternoon.
Just like a blast.
Watch those.
All right, y'all. Other questions about government relations and things in the interim studies? There are just a couple of things that I kind of wanted to keep an eye on, so I'm glad we got that on everybody's radar. NASB updates and information. Miss Liz, how's good old life in NASB?
Nothing new, we just have the state conference next month and we all know about that. There's an executive meeting on Wednesday evening. I'm thinking about going to before the board meeting, so,
Usually it's a nice dinner.
well, then there's the
John's
dinner,
back to
yeah.
make some good
This
jokes
is
and
before the
calls it a
dinner.
night.
Mhm.
All right. All right, well, thank you for the update. All right, that takes us to enrollment. Dr. Harley, how's life in your world?
Fabulous.
Wonderful.
So great. Okay, as of today, our enrollment, including pre-K, is 3,671, which is 106 greater from last year at this time. And we are in our grade levels, seven grade levels are more than we were last year, 4 are less, and about 3 are equal. So we're pretty steady, but slightly growing, which is a healthy district.
Good. All right, questions, comments, concerns?
Are the option enrollments rolling in already? Is that common for them to come in
There's,
like pretty soon?
they're
or-
starting, that, it opens September 1st.
Okay.
So yes, they're already coming.
Rolling in, okay.
Mhm.
And then is there room in all of our schools or what schools? Do we open up like individual elementary schools are open? Like what does that look like?
That's actually coming up later
Oh,
on our
geez.
agenda.
All right, perfect. That was my questions. I saw your
Yeah.
thing in there, so I was like, oh, maybe that's when we
You
talk about
bet.
it. So
Good question.
perfect.
All right, no jumping the gun here, we're gonna keep.
I
it
know,
moving.
sorry.
So
I
excited.
saw it
We're so
on,
excited.
I saw it on the agenda, but I didn't click on it very well, so.
That's okay.
All right,
Oh, there's
yes,
one thing I forgot to say, mention under government relations. There's a report out by the State Department of Education on the dyslexia. If anybody hasn't yet, it's a good report, interesting reading. And it talks about reading scores, so we need to look at that. And it has interactive maps and things like that, so.
I love a good interactive map.
Huh?
I love a good interactive map.
It's amazing.
Awesome, can you send it to me?
Oh, sure.
Excellent, I love it. All right, back out of government relations, enrollment update taken care of. Superintendent evaluation update, Jason,
So-
go right ahead.
This is just a FYI for our board, timelines on there as far as evaluation. Remember, going into the second year, one evaluation a year, and that is due on or before our November meeting, which will end up being the second one that we have. But early next week, NASB will send me the information on my self-evaluation. I'll complete that, get that turned back in, and then you can see the process that goes on from there. The board should get that back by the 29th of October, and then have until the 7th to go ahead and evaluate your superintendent, see how he's doing. And we'll have that information in. Robin will get that final report, and share that out, and then we'll have that included on our board agenda on the 28th.
All right, pretty standard, y'all. We've all been through this now, yes, I guess,
Mhm.
okay.
Yes, I think twice, wasn't it twice? I was like, that's a lot of evaluation.
You're a professional
Yeah,
at this
right.
point. All right, cool. Any questions, comments, concerns about super eval and how we will go about that this time around?
This is like indirectly related, but I did appreciate Jason, I don't think there's anywhere else to mention it, but I messaged Jason about making sure that we're reminding families that if your kids are sick, we learned that from our own family experience, that pneumonia is going around
Yes, it
badly
is.
and strongly again. So Weston actually would have missed all 5 days of school, but Seymour closed for 2, so we missed 3 days, thank goodness. So I appreciate Jason was sure to include that in the most recent family newsletter. So reminding about what exclusion policies should be for when you're sick. So, because the doctor said it's been real bad already this year, so.
And we'll cycle that back around probably once a month. from
Yeah.
now until
It'll be in it's the first Thursday measures of every month through February.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's important. Attendance is so important, but so is keeping your kids home when they're sick. So thanks, guys.
Do they have a pneumonia shot for kids?
I don't think so. And they said it's actually walking pneumonia, which usually little kids don't get, and that's what Weston had. So they said it's very uncommon.
I know like 2 kids that I know in my class at Mockingbird has had pneumonia.
Yes, yeah.
One was in the hospital, she said, so.
I do know for whooping cough's going around,
Yeah.
so it could be
Now
a
that,
mixture of both, so those, that is going around as well.
that's covered
Again.
by vaccines, so that
Yeah,
Yeah,
means
it is,
yeah.
but,
some kids are not vaccinated.
well, they're still getting it, just maybe not as bad.
Yeah.
It's just not as bad,
Um,
like the flu shot.
All right, y'all. Other questions, comments, concerns? And we're gonna turn it
I
over to
was
Ms.
suggestion.
Dolly and the
I know. I
safety
stay off.
presentation.
Okay, so every year we get to come talk about safety. So last year we talked about the standard response protocol and the parent handout, what that looks like. And so this year, we're just gonna kind of go over what our annual requirements are. This goes hand in hand with the resolution that you guys filled out, I think back in August, with the training documents and those kinds of pieces of what's required by the state, where it's required in legislation and in rule. And so that training time resolution kind of lines up with this, but this is a blank copy of what our buildings fill out. And so it is the annual safety requirements that all buildings need to do. So for example, if we have a student pull a fire alarm, you have to evacuate the building because it's, you know, a fire drill then. And so we can count that, which is really great because you have to do 10 of those a year. So
Jump for the alarms.
yes, so it's lovely, but so that's just kind of a rundown of everything we have to do. A lot of our safety plan really revolves around the standard response protocol, which all of our staff get, our new staff get training on that during their onboarding process, and then building principals review that with their staff at the beginning of the year. And it just kind of walks through that. We have an emergency operations plan that we walk through every year. We meet with our law enforcement agency to go over our SRO memorandum of understanding and just kind of walk through what that role looks like within our district, and how to cover those pieces. And then throughout the school year, those are the pieces that are required. So again, it goes with standard response protocol. So when it says lockdown, we do those. Fire drills would be evacuate. Tornado drill would be shelter. You know, so those languages are exchanged, you know, between the two. So it's really nice that our kids kind of then practice it. So when they hear it over the loudspeaker, they have an understanding of what it is. We keep going. Cindy Kirkpatrick does a really great job of testing all of our AEDs. Every building has one. I do not think we have one in central office. Is it in the back? Oh, it's out here. Okay, great. And then all of our buildings have them, and I know the high school sports complex is working on 2 of them, right? Yep. So that's those pieces, and then end of school year, we just make sure that this is all filled out. So it's more, it seems like it's a lot, but 10 fire drills that's a lot of fire drills. You know.
And then one tornado drill isn't really that many for how many actual tornado warnings we had, at least this past year.
But you know what we talked about? If our kids would've, so, you know, I know people in Elkhorn and in Bellevue, those were 2 of the biggest schools that had to do that. And they talked about how great their kids did
Yeah.
because they practice.
Yeah.
Omaha Public Schools gave a debrief from their incident at Omaha Northwest. And they talked about how their kids just did an amazing job, and it's because they practice.
Yeah.
And that's why you practice those
Oh, yeah.
drills, is so that if you ever have a situation that you encounter, your students and honestly your staff are prepared to know what to do. Which is really nice and convenient and safe for our kids. You know, we hope those things don't happen, but you know, tornadoes, I think that's the first time in my 20 years that I've ever seen a tornado actually happen during school hours where kids actually had to go into shelter. So,
Yeah.
you know, so that's, you know, kind of crazy, but it's nice. I mean, and then you even think about, so like our high school smelled gas one day
Yeah.
and they had to evacuate. That's not on here, but they evacuate for fire drills. So you're taking those practices that you do throughout school year through drills, and they're being put in place in other situations, so, which is convenient, I guess.
And then if there's an issue, you learn about it during the drill instead of
Yeah.
something actually happens, which is, yeah, so great job.
One thing that's not on here because it's not a building safety plan, but it's required is a transportation, so we have to do bus evacuations, every year. And Connie, our transportation coordinator, and her team coordinate those at all of our buildings. So you can do that a couple ways. We choose to do it by school in all of our schools. You could do it just, you know, if they're taking a field trip. But if you think of high school kids who are involved in athletics and activities and class, you know, visits and things like that, it's easier just to knock all of the kids out in one big drill than it is to try to do that individually for those pieces. You have questions on that part?
I do, so
Yeah.
Marcia Herring and her bags of scenarios, everybody, so she asked us something over the summer,
Yeah.
it got stuck in my brain. What does it look like if we need to do a reverse evacuation? If there is some kind of something outside the school and we need to get everybody inside, what does that look like?
So, I was not around for this, but it's my favorite story of, there was they had to evacuate because it was fire, is it fire? What? A gas leak, and then a tornado. So, the tornado sirens went off while all of the kids were outside and they had to get back in. So, we actually just went over that, as kind of like an on-site reunification. With our building principals and talked about, okay, if you're on site and you're outside and something happens, and what's your plan and what does that look like? So I think the easiest is elementary because no one can leave, right? Like you're not gonna have a kindergartner get in a car and leave. So so that looks, you know, very organized. But I would tell you, they line up, you know, kind of by your homeroom at the secondary level. So, you know, Carrie would have all of her kids, Mr. Buckingham would have all of his kids. And so they line up like that. And then if we had to go back in, you know, if there was a tornado drill and a gas leak, you'd probably use your reunification site, your off site, which ours is the arena. We talked about, we have closed sites as well. So, you know, like Meadows is the high school can go there. So just different pieces of what that would look like. But scenarios are always, yes, because you just never know.
Marcia blew my mind with that one, y'all.
Yep. Or like we talked about when the tornadoes happened, like what would we do if parents came to the door, but you're in shelter?
Mhm.
You know, so what are we doing and what does that look like? So it's caused us to review some of our internal practices and processes as well, of things that you don't think of or things that are like, well, what would we do? What would that look like? So, yeah, it's a great learning experience.
I'm curious to hear what you think about that too, because I know we lucked out kind of because we were out of school when the tornado sirens went off, and I am not from Nebraska. When there's a tornado siren, I go to my tornado shelter because our house actually has a concrete thing under the ground, very in an old house. And I was like calling my husband. I'm like, go to school and get Weston right now. I want him home with me. I'll be home. I want, you know, and they were like, oh yeah, you're fine, because it was far enough away. But I asked Jason, like, what are we actually supposed to do? I don't know if they were like Katie's frantic husbands begging her to, you know, but figuring out, are we gonna let families? Are we not gonna? Are we gonna keep them at OPS? I think had their families in the building with them for like 2 hours, which
Bellevue.
Bellevue had their kids, yeah,
Yeah.
for like 2 hours, I don't know if.
Well, and I heard one school that they had like basically a stranger, for lack of a better word, want to come in and
Oh,
then
yeah.
get rid of that situation. like,
Yeah.
You want this person to be safe, but you don't, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah, how do you
There's a
handle that?
lot of like
Yeah,
wild
there's a
cards
lot
at
of
play
wild,
there.
yeah.
It's a great term, wild cards.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
We'd be hard pressed to deny it,
Yeah,
parent their child. If they wanna take them, even though that's not what's best for them.
Yeah.
Most likely, we're gonna let them go.
Yeah.
We had that situation, not with the Elkhorn tornado, but another one that we had with inclement weather. I think there was concert up at the high school.
Yep.
Mockingbird was up there,
Mockingbird Choir.
and they had sheltered, as they should have.
Yeah.
Because the sirens went off, and a parent was adamant she was gonna take her child, gonna take them right now and go
Yeah.
home. So even though the school's probably one of the safer buildings you could be in this community, I'm not gonna stand in the way of that. I mean,
Yeah.
if a parent wants to take their child, we're gonna let them do it.
One thing we just talked about when we talked, cause we talked about that quite a bit, was just who's at the front desk manning
yeah,
that.
that's my, yeah, I think that's my,
Right.
yeah, it's like who's gonna
What does that look like?
let you, yeah.
In the shelter.
Yeah, because for Little Rams, we have a card to get in after school hours, so that wasn't an issue, because you can still get in the building, but during school hours, you can't get in.
Yeah. But that's another situation that caused us, Katie, to just kind of walk through, what do we do?
Yeah, yeah.
So, one thing I don't think we have really talked about is our mobile Rave app that we use for communication. And so, we're gonna talk about this today. So, Jason, when he was the assistant superintendent, he oversaw all the safety pieces. And this has been with Ralston, how many years, Mr. Buckingham? Have we used the Rave app? 10, that's what I was thinking too. So, it's an internal communication tool that we use. This, I was really trying to find something that would be useful for you to use. And it wasn't the easiest, platform to gather information, but this is like their K through 12, like brochure of like, how do you use it and what do you do with it? So what it is for us is it is an app that you can directly go to it. So if there is an active shooter, there you open the app and you push a button and it directly dials 911 and puts you in touch with dispatch. If there is an unknown person on campus, we had to use that at Meadows. So if there's an unidentified person in the parking lot, then they can use that and it quietly sometimes quietly, notifies administration. You can go through it and identify who you want notified in different situations and scenarios. We use it for communication internally. If you do a fire drill, hey, great job, all clear, come back in the building. The high school uses it to communicate with our building secretaries at the elementary level and middle school about the bus hub. So bus hub's running 5 minutes late. Your kids are gonna come late today. So it eliminates a lot of phone calls of, hey, bus 12 isn't here yet, where is it? So it uses that. The high school uses it the most. They're the largest building, and they don't have, communication in all areas of the school. If there's staff outside on the football field and something's, going on, they can notify somebody because they have a cell phone on them. So, but they use it the most. They don't have phones in their classrooms. You don't always need a phone in your classroom. And then as we're moving forward with it, really walking through what does that look like with our new technology integration within the district, and how do we use it and what does it look like? So, so those are all pieces. I know Mr. Fink and I have a meeting with them this week just to kind of figure out what does that look like. Is it something we can integrate? Is it something that we need to do differently, or what does it look like? So, so that's kind of nice of what we can do and how we can do it. We also use this app for our crisis team. We used to do, like back in the day, a calling tree where you had to have a sheet of paper with you I kept it in my purse all the time in my billfold so that if anything ever happened, I'd get it out and be like, okay, who do I have to call? Okay, my calling list is these following people. But now we use this. And we just send a note to everyone on the crisis team, and it's just, it's just a snapshot. So crisis team needs to meet at RHS at this time on this date. Or check your email for more information or things like that. So it's really streamlined communication in some of those pieces and what that looks like. Our staff can also use it if there's a disruptive student, or if they suspect something in the hallways or a behavior, or someone's not where they're supposed to be. They can just send a note through that app and it notifies administration. And then administration can start wandering or coming where they need to go. So, same with playground, like, a playground or a medical emergency. If something happens in PE or the shop class or something like that, then our staff has access to notify somebody right away. And then it goes to our medical staff, so our nursing staff in our buildings and then our district nurses. There's something called a critical incident. If your phone is on silent, and you have everything turned off and it is a critical incident, that thing wails. And most of the time, district administration is all together when that happens. And we are all like, it always catches, I'm always like, oh my gosh, but it is definitely a tool that we have found very, very useful for us. The picture that Jason has pulled up right now is exactly what the app looks like when you open it. So it's got those, and I'll never forget, like the first time I opened it, I was like, I opened it and then I did it on the table, like I opened it and then I took my hands off because I was like, I'm not calling 911 from this thing, I'm not calling 911 from this thing. So it definitely asks you to confirm though, so like, are you sure? So, but
So
it's
every
been a
time
really
you
great
open it
tool.
up, it's like, that's what comes up first. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so
it's
that's
kinda
the
not
first
cool to
thing.
hit the wrong button, but.
Yeah,
like,
you just have to know it, so at the very, very bottom of it, it has like staff assist. And so like you open it, so it looks, so it looks like this, and then you just slide to unlock, and then it's all right there.
Oh, yeah.
And it shuts off after so many seconds, but the most we use is staff assist, and then it goes through and you can select who you're sending a message to, and what does that look like, so. So yeah, and we have teachers that use it. I think that's probably been the best tool, is we actually have teachers who are using it. Which I think then just shows that it's a useful tool that staff are utilizing.
And they're familiar with it, if there would be an emergency, it's not like, oh, this app, like it's on, like on the very end of my phone or something, I don't
Look at
even.
this passcode.
I don't even know, yeah, what's the, I don't even know what
Yeah.
this is, I forgot how to use it.
I mean,
so.
mine is still pretty hidden because I
Yeah.
didn't want my kids to be like, what's this fun thing, 10 years ago? Is
That's
this
a
a
fun
fun
way,
game?
right?
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been a really great tool. I know our MOAC Student Services meeting last month really focused around a lot of school safety pieces with Omaha's situation at Northwest, where they had we clarify, it was a shooting in a school. And so they've reached out because they want to learn about what tools people are using for communication. So we're gonna present on this, and then Bellevue uses a different app, and they're gonna present on theirs. So it'll give us an opportunity to learn too. Is there a tool that's different that does something that we don't have right now? So to be able to utilize and use, but it's been something, I don't even remember why we figured we needed it, but was it after our,
Well, I think probably
I just don't remember.
one of the biggest things that this app allows us to do is it empowers everybody in our school. So for example, whether you're whether you're principal of building or you're, a teacher or a para, everyone has the ability to call a lockdown right off of their phone. And when you look at it, and Missy studied this quite a bit, timing in these incidents of school shootings is critical.
Yeah.
So if I have somebody that sees someone in the parking lot that doesn't look right, they can activate that. And when you press that button, let's say it's the active assailant or an active shooter button on there, it does three things. One, it calls 911. And each of these apps is geofenced. So there's perimeters that have been set around all the different buildings, so it knows if you're inside of that area or not when you press that button. Two, if you're unable to talk, it'll send a pre-made message to 911. So it'll say active shooter at, say Mockingbird Elementary, for example. And then three, and probably the most important piece, is that it notifies everybody. So in addition to the staff at the school, which is the most critical, it also notifies us at central office. It also notifies all the principals in all the other buildings. So one of the experiences that we had prior to having this app is we had somebody that called in a fake shooting at Ralston High School. And I can tell you, being overseeing safety at that point, it was unbelievable how many calls and texts I got within the course of about 3 minutes. It was just overwhelming. I couldn't answer them all. this helps out a little bit in that I don't have, or Missy wouldn't have 8 principals, calling her all at the same time, wanting to know, hey, what's going on? Do we need to go to lockdown? This communicates that out effectively, and again, in those incidents where time is at a premium, it really can save some time, and hopefully won't ever have to use it in that aspect, but if we do, this is a device, I think, that really is a huge time saver in trying to get that communication out to as many people as possible. So, there's other buttons on there. There's a fire one, you can press that and it still calls 911. Same thing with the medical, it'll call on that. But by and large, the staff assist is what we use with it. Fortunately, we have not had many incidents where we've had to dial 911 for an active assailant, so.
The medical ones, the other one, I would tell you, I think it's used a little bit more as those emergency buttons. We, have students with seizures, and so they'll use that right away. And Cindy Kirkpatrick, our lead nurse, she sees that thing and she doesn't even call, she just goes. So she gets in her car and drives, then she finds out the information there. So, to Mr. Buckingham's point about communication, it just really streamlines it and saves us the ability to do that. One concern is, if there was ever a situation, is that our phone lines would be overloaded. And cell phone towers would be overloaded. And so this is a tool that definitely, you're not gonna get a busy signal, it's gonna go through and it's gonna get out, so.
So one of the other things too, and we put a lot of thought into this, if, let's say something happens at one of our elementary buildings, there's really generally only 2 to 3 lines in those buildings. We have that to where it turn on here at the central office, so we can reroute those calls here and we can operate at least 10 lines simultaneously. We've got staff that are designated that, okay, if an emergency happens, this is your job, we need you to answer phones, here's the message that we're gonna put out. If it's a reunification situation, we'd be able to communicate that out. If it's, why can't I get to my child's school? Well, there's a perimeter set up and this is what's going on. So we try and get that information out. Looking at it from the sidelines, OPS did a very, very, very good job of communicating out what was happening at 911 Northwest. They had updates every 15 minutes. And they had communicated that out so well that, rather than have that void where there's no communication out and having people imagine the worst, they had that on regular every 15-minute increments until I think they shut down at like 7:30 at night. And that was really well done on their part, and I think we can all learn something from that getting that information out to help ease some of the anxiety that inevitably is going to take place in one of these events is huge.
Questions about that platform that we use, that app?
Be interested to see what the other options are, right,
Yeah.
that are being used within the metro.
Yeah.
So one thing that we're looking at right now, Mary, which has kind of started our conversation a little bit more about, do we need to continue to use the RAVE, is all the technology that we put into buildings. And as we get to a point where we've got it installed in all of ours, there's the ability to take each one of those box lights and have that flash up there. So if you go into lockdown, it'll supersede whatever's on the screen. It'll turn it on and it'll flash that up there that we're in lockdown right now. There's the microphones that each of the teachers will wear. Well, there's the ability that we can go back and program it to where you push a button like 3 times or 4 times, whatever, in rapid succession. That would put everything into lockdown. What I've got to get over if we're ever going to move away from this app is that everyone has this, because, well, almost everybody that carries a phone has this app with them. We have a few holdouts that don't have cell phones, but by and large, we're probably 98% of our staff are carrying phones in some way. And having them be able to be that first reporter is huge. So I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where we move away from this entirely, but there are some pieces of technology that we have with the box lights that certainly could help us look at that direction.
Out of curiosity, what is an app like this cost?
$14,000.
$14,000 per year?
And quite honestly, we put this in at a time when we didn't have cameras, we didn't have secured vestibules, we didn't have shatter resistant glass. There were things that, I hate to say band-aiding, but we felt like this was a step in the right direction for us to make our schools more safe.
I think that's pretty reasonable for the
Yeah, if you
services
break it
that
down.
that it provides.
And if you think of how many staff we have that are on it,
Mhm.
if you did like a cost per person.
Like $2
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah.
The high adoption is amazing. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
All right. What I think I like about this too is like you said with the cell phone, even though there's a couple holdouts, if they are outside, you know, in the playground in elementary schools, I'm not sure the teachers have their, you know, some of that newer technology on them, but I think it's gonna integrate it too.
Missy,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Donna?
tornado shelters in the elementary schools, are those all the gyms?
No, it varies. So with the new construction, yeah, Mockingbirds, theirs look different since it was brand new build. They had to meet different code, through the city. But every other building, since it was existing, Jason's gonna explain this better, so existing structure.
Pretty much anywhere where there's interior masonry walls are considered to be our tornado shelters in those buildings that weren't redone like Mockingbird was.
Like bathrooms, locker rooms.
But you've got, if everyone were rule followers, they would have that tornado evacuation or shelter place and their fire evacuation routes both up on charts right inside their rooms. Since we've done these renovations, we've probably extended a little bit more grace than we should. And that's something that we're circling back around. We're starting to pick back up on these again, that this is the expectation that you have your SRP poster posted in your room in English and Spanish, that you have the tornado shelter site in place, that you have the fire evacuation site up there. So I know our principals have done that because I've given them new floor plans and how to draw them up. I just, as I go around, I haven't seen them up in 100% of rooms, and that's where we need to be. Also, we need to include those in our subfolders. So if somebody comes in, they know exactly where they're supposed to go if there is an emergency.
I know that we keep plans for each school with the Ralston Police Department. Have we updated Mockingbirds and Seymour's since their rooms changed?
Yep. So one of the things that we invite RPD specifically to do, as we've changed the layouts of like Wildwood, for example, invite them in. We want them in the buildings. We have had RPD, a few people run through there, not as many as I want, because I'd like to have every sworn officer run through the building. What I really would like is our fire department to come out too, and I need to work on that a little bit more, just so because if you went to school in that building 20 years ago and you walked into it now, you'd be lost.
Yeah.
At Wildwood specifically, middle school not so much, but Wildwood, Bloomfield, and Meadows are considerably different than what they were, a year and a half ago. So, go ahead.
There's something called OMAPs, so Sergeant Tomlinson with the Omaha Police Department runs that, and so those he just asked for all of our updates, and so I sent those over on, I don't know, last Friday maybe, of all the new blueprints, and then he'll actually come out, and then all of our local law enforcement they have badge access to all of our buildings, so Omaha, Douglas County.
Their vest, right?
And so they have the ability to get into all of our buildings. And then they have all of that, of what it looks like. When we had our student call it in, Ralston wasn't the first department on site. Just because there was an Omaha officer about a block away. And so it's things like that it's not, Ralston's small, and that's great, but it's not always just gonna be them. So, one thing I asked, Sergeant Tomlinson was, can we have a commander from the precinct that oversees this area come and walk through our buildings? So we're gonna work with all the day sergeants to get them through our buildings, to walk through and just meet our principals and see what that looks like. So we're working on scheduling that hopefully all the way and get it done before winter break.
So one of the things that we've got a Google site that's specifically for law enforcement. So included in that are floor plans, pictures of the doors, what's inside of them. So every exterior door, there was a photo that showed if I breach door 18, what's inside door 18 when I come in. Utility shutoffs, there's just a wealth of information that we don't share out publicly, but law enforcement have access to. We need to update it because we've had some changes to our structure. But yeah, that's information that we had put in place and will get updated here pretty soon.
Alrighty, y'all, other school safety presentation questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate all everyone does to keep our kiddos safe. Okay, now for the fun business of voluntary separation.
Okay, so not nothing has really changed on this last year, but this is a process that we go through. And I thought I would just provide the information out as far as our policy and as far as the resolution that we would put together if the board elected to extend our voluntary separation program again this year. Just a couple of reminders, there's some things that this voluntary separation program does. One, it allows us some cost savings. We have to go and prove to the state that over a 5-year period, we would end up saving money. Generally, what you're doing is taking people that are at the end of their careers or at the very bottom right of the salary schedule and replacing them with people that are a little bit less experienced, but a little bit less costly as well. So I think in all the years of doing this, I've had maybe 2 people that didn't qualify for a savings, and that's because those 2 people were at bachelor's level and had not moved off of that in the 20, well, actually 30 plus years they've worked in our school district. So generally, it ends up being a cost savings for the district. Reminder again that this is money that is outside of the $5 levy. So we're able to put that in. It does not take away budgetary money or dollars that we would have to purchase supplies or personnel or those things. Process, the way it works, we open it up, provided the board approves it, open it up mid-December, actually around December 1st, and run through January 15th. And that gives our qualified employees, those that have worked 20 years or more inside of our school district, the ability to file for that voluntary separation. Depending on how much money they make for a year, they're eligible for up to $35,000, which they would get in a one-time payment the February after they've retired. A couple other things of note in there. If they do take the voluntary SEP, one of the agreements is they will not apply for another job here at Ralston for at least 5 years. However, they can come back and work as a substitute, or they could work as a paraprofessional if that's something they really desire to do. So, in looking at the attachments then, let's see here. This is a mock-up of the resolution that if the board approves, we'll go ahead and we'll put this on. Typically, our standard has been $250,000 for a limit for the voluntary SEP. Again, that's limited to a maximum of 35 per employee coming through. We've gotten close to it 1 year, 2 years ago, but generally we're well underneath that number when it comes up. And what do most people use it for? They use it for that bridge to pay health insurance premiums between now and when they become eligible for Medicare.
Alrighty. Questions, comments, concerns? That was an easy one, alright. That takes us into board action items, everybody, which means I would love to start with a motion.
Motion to approve a cooperative relationship with Cornerstone Christian for swimming and diving for the 2024-25 season.
Second.
Excellent, we've got Liz and then Carrie, excuse me. I'm stuck in my throat too, I mentioned.
Yeah.
Just,
Discussion.
yeah, we're already in a cooperative relationship with Omaha Gross. Cornerstone Christian is a very small parochial school. They are cooperating with Omaha Gross on almost every one of their activities or sports. We're talking about 4 girls total that would end up being a part of our swim team. My understanding is we have plenty of spots available, and we sometimes struggle to fill all the events we have at meets anyway. So this is not something that's gonna necessarily take away from any opportunities that Ralston kids would have. And again, we do have a long history with Gross as being a partner for us in swimming and dive. So I would suggest that we approve this cooperative.
Alright, questions, comments, concerns? Please call the vote.
Mrs. Huff?
Aye.
Mrs. Richards?
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus?
Hi.
Ms. Wordy?
Aye.
Mrs. Goodman?
Motion passes, thank you, board. Alrighty, I would take another motion, y'all.
Motion to approve the option enrollment capacity resolution as written.
Second.
Alright, we got Katie and then Carrie that time. Alright, discussion.
Dr. Harley.
Oh, sorry. I was actually adding up. I probably did not look good because I was tinkering around on my phone, but it was my calculator. So, this has not changed from last year, it's the same thing, it talks about that, we have to submit a report, if we have to deny option enrollment. And it's my understanding that we have been ready to do this before I even got here. And, Missy's done a great job. This really comes down to our special education students, if we have to deny special education students that are opting in. And Missy, this is not, it's not an easy job to do. I should let Missy speak to this really. She has to do a lot of digging and it's a lot of work. And I'm just gonna let her explain
Yeah.
what she has to do to find out if we can take individual kids, each individual applicant.
So if a family marks that a student receives special education services on the application that's provided by the state, then we have to call and find their resident district and request special education records. School to school, you don't have to have parent permission to access those records, but the parent signs that on the form. So their signature on the application counts as a release of information. We then have to request that, then we get those, and then I have to review them. I have to look at accommodations, I have to look at their disability category, I have to find out how many service minutes they receive, who provides the services, where do they provide the services, if transportation's involved, and look at the cost effectiveness of all of that to see if we can continue to serve the students who reside in Ralston, and if we can take students who do not reside in Ralston, to make sure that we're providing our residents and our taxpayers with the services that their students, have the right to. So, it is a lot of work, some of those IEPs that come our way. IEPs are not small by any means. I wish they were like a 5-page document. They are not. Like I think one this year was 42 pages, that I looked through. And when they come from all over, I pretty much know most of the formats. Some schools use the same student record system as we do, some schools do not. And so, but we're pretty good at seeing what those look like. I think we'll try to figure out if my amazing admin assistant, Sandy Harrell, can go through and at least mark some things for me so then I can just dive in a little deeper. I think it's no one has time, but we make time to do it. But and then we have to write a letter, like Ann said, but that letter that we write for a denial has to include every single reason you deny. So, for example, on the special education denial letter, there's about 15 bullets that you have to go through, and I just can't mark the bullet and send it. State law requires you to put an explanation of the why. And so then we have to explain, why we can't provide the service or why they're not being, allowed to opt into our district and add all of that information in there. I would tell you, 5 years ago, I would have taken every kid with a speech impediment or with a language, but now we are short speech paths. And so we can't even take kids with an ARTIC, disability anymore because we don't have enough speech language pathologists to cover our students. And so it really comes down to a lot of those factors. I think the hard part is we have kids applying now for next year, and I have no idea what our staffing looks like next year. And so those things are always fun to try to navigate, but
Is there a staffing shortage in this area as well?
in special education.
Oh, yeah.
School psychs, speech paths are the hardest right now. And then special education teachers. We have 2 that are on provisionals for us that are working for us. They can do that. We can have teachers on provisionals, but they're working on their degrees as they go. So, but yes, we are luckily, knock on everything, we're one of the only metro school districts that is completely staffed in that area right now. Yeah, but we have 5 out of district speech contracts to cover for speech needs. Mhm.
So to answer the question you had earlier,
Yeah.
Terry,
Yeah. So, what can you were talking about who's what buildings are already
Yeah.
capped or what grade
So-
levels are already
Mhm.
capped. As it says up there, we're not taking any in Mockingbird at all.
Mhm.
And that has been the case for at least 3 years, I think.
Two at least.
And of course, we don't take pre-K at all. And so our class sizes, they're not the happy little tiny class sizes that I think
Mhm.
Ralston used to be, as I was truly using my calculator. Like Bloomfield right now, we've got classes at 23, 21, and we have one at our 6th grade at 25.5 right now. So they're obviously moving to middle school.
Is that the one that we have the additional assistants in the classroom?
No, that's
no.
Karen Western.
That's Karen
Okay.
Western, yep, that class is at 28,
Mm.
which for a minute, it was gonna be 30. And then it went to 29, now it's at 28, so that's helpful. And then, yes, Buck granted that class a para that will go through, that bubble will go through with them through 6th grade. And they do have a 6th grade at 26 right now, Karen Western. Meadows has, their biggest class is 24 in 2nd grade. And we've got a couple at 23 at Seymour and one 22 at 2nd grade. Our 2nd grade is big. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room, and we do need to keep some space, you know, for our neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of wiggle room at this point to take our option kids. But we'll see, you know, kids come and go. And the kids move out in the summer, and we were taking option kids through July last summer, but I don't know that we're gonna be able to go that long this next summer.
Roughly how
Anything
many
else
did
on
not-
that? Nothing else?
Just the capacities are listed here, just like they are in the resolution.
Yes, they did not change.
Okay, that's-
Yep.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
912 capped at 1050 there, and as we sit right now, we are at we're at 10, I have to do math, darn, 1042.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I think that was my question is like, is there kind of like like a sweet spot based on your knowledge about like class size? Like, you know, you said like, so like 20, like what's getting like in like the elementary grade, like what's feeling like too many kids?
Oh, well, we don't want it to go over 25.
Yeah, per
That's-
classroom, is that like,
absolutely,
yeah,
and we
as
would
soon as
like
you're,
to
25,
say
it's like,
23 for kinder.
okay,
I would,
that was, yeah,
and 23 kindergartners is
that's a lot.
a lot.
Okay.
Yes, I don't think we have any at 23 right now.
Great.
Yeah, our kindergarten is a nice size. Don't knock on anything, as Missy says.
Yep, not gonna anything.
Not anything, anything
Okay.
you want. Yeah, our kindergarten is at a nice size.
Okay.
I did get a text from a friend who's got a child that's experiencing some bullying issues in 6th grade, I think, and messaged me and said, I heard Ralston's got a really great middle school. And I'm like, we do. Get your name in real soon.
We,
So,
our middle
yeah,
school
but
is
it's, yeah,
amazing.
yes, I've heard really great. She said that she's talked to several people and she's had some recommendations to look into Ralston, so that's,
Good.
that felt nice to get that text, but I was like, oh goodness. Good, option enrollment's open now.
It
Submit
is.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
Get it
Yep.
submitted.
No
so.
promises, but it's
Yeah,
open.
right, yes, it's like, don't tell me you know, it doesn't matter if you know me or not, you don't get any special treatment.
That's right. That is true, Katie.
It's not an
Much as we love
IEP,
you.
no IEP though, so that's at least a little bit easier. Yeah, how many people do we deny?
I'm doing it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm doing it.
Math is hard at the table apparently.
Huh?
I said math is hard when you're at the table apparently.
You just have to count on that. You just have to-
And you know what's really fun, and I think Buck has mentioned this, and when I say fun, that's sarcastic, but each of those letters has to go out certified mail.
Oh my
And
goodness.
isn't each letter like $8?
And then mine are really thick.
Yeah, state mandate.
Unfunded.
I said
Unfunded.
unfunded mandate, you know, those are my favorite.
That's great.
Isn't that?
$8?
And a bunch of them come back.
She's still counting.
It makes me.
Wow.
That would make me crazy also, as someone who has done a lot of mailing in my adult life.
So that means they're bad addresses or they're just not being
They don't,
accepted?
they don't
Or
answer the
certified
door.
mail.
Could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be both.
Generally, certified mail isn't something good. People have figured that out.
I don't want it. Or they come during the daytime too, people are working and then you have to go to the post
Yeah.
office to pick it
I
up
mean,
and
really,
kind of
how many people are at home to
who've
answer
got
this?
certified mail, who've got kids in school age.
Okay,
Alright.
All right,
All right,
football,
up to-
ladies
up
and
to-
gentlemen.
we had about 219 applications. We accepted 192 of those.
Oh, my God.
5 canceled, which that's on the family, like either they said, hey, we got into a different school, or we moved to a different community and it's not close, like this one like moved out of state. And then some of them declined, because they didn't get the building they wanted.
Oh.
So if I don't get elementary A and I get elementary C, our favorite thing was we had people who wouldn't mark another option.
Yeah, they get to mark like up to three options and they just put one.
And then we denied 21 and special education denials 8.
So every child gets the $8.
Well, no, there's more than that. Sorry, I lied to you.
Just asking.
Is it just the special education ones that get the certified, or is it all
No,
of them?
everyone gets a certified
Everyone
letter.
gets a certified.
Every denial,
Every
every
denial.
denial gets a certified letter.
So doing the quick math on that, if anybody asked, we took 90%. A
Thank
little
you.
over 90%.
Yeah.
people applied.
Stop it. Box that back.
See, look at who is good at math,
Oh,
everybody.
yeah.
Surprise,
So
Alright.
families can apply to more than one district at a time?
Yes. But you can only use one option enrollment.
And that's
So-
per K through 6 or in the middle school and then,
I think you get 3 switches.
Two,
And they're,
Yeah.
two before
2
graduation.
before graduation.
Oh, I thought it
Two
was
before
3,
graduation?
okay.
Okay, I thought it was one per,
No, it's
Grade
two
set.
per graduation, however, there's a bunch of flexibility in there because they could go back to their home building or their home district. And that won't count against another option, and they can come back to, like if they start, say, an OPS and then they come here, they can go back or they can return to Ralston and it doesn't count
Within
against.
it, if we have room.
If, yes, if we have,
It's not
right,
just an automatic.
it does not automatically, right.
The only automatic is if you have attended 2 consecutive years and you move. So if you live here and then I live within the Ralston School District boundaries and I move to, I don't know, 60th and Maple and I wanna maintain enrollment here, I can be automatically grandfathered if I have been a student 2 consecutive years. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about special education because you're already considered and counted and being served.
Interesting, all the little caveats that are made, aren't they?
All right, y'all. Further discussion, other questions? We probably better wrap this up, people. All right, call the vote.
Ms. Rhodey.
Aye.
Ms. Kraus.
Aye.
Mrs. Richards.
Aye.
Mrs. Kumru.
Aye.
Mrs. Huff.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, board. I would take a motion, please.
motion to approve reassignment of childcare program policy to number 3066 and adoption of safety team duties to policy 3041.
Second.
Yeah, that was Liz and then Katie.
Reminder, we reviewed this last time. I think the policy sound that we have in place for 3041, and we're just changing the number for childcare programs, so we can keep that policy as well. That's not currently assigned through our policy service, but it's one that we should retain.
All right, questions, comments, concerns? Excellent, please call the vote.
Mrs. Kumru.
Aye.
Ms. Rhodey.
Aye.
Mrs. Huff.
Aye.
Mrs. Richards.
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus.
Aye.
Excellent, thank you, board. Motion passes. All right, y'all, I would take the next motion.
Motion to approve removal of policy 3037 petty cash as it is no longer used.
All right, we got Katie and then Carrie that time. Thanks, y'all. Okay. Discussion, that's where we were. I got sidetracked, y'all.
Just, we don't use it in the buildings anymore, so, but suggest removal.
Excellent. Questions, comments, concerns? Please call the vote.
Mrs. Kumru,
Aye.
Mrs. Huff.
Aye.
Mrs. Richards,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Aye.
Ms. Rohde.
Aye.
All right, thanks, y'all. Motion passes. Okay, next motion, please.
Motion to approve the red line copy of policy 3035, chain of command is presented.
Second.
Discussion.
Just as we talked about last time, we made some adjustments to the policy our policy service put out so that it's now in line with what our line of progression is in our district.
Questions, comments? Please call the vote.
Mrs. Huff.
Aye.
Mrs. Richards,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus,
Aye.
Ms. Rohde,
Aye.
Mrs. Kumru.
Aye.
Alrighty, motion passes, thank you. So we are not stuck in Groundhog's Day and this is not accidentally on the agenda. We didn't actually make a motion or second to have Miss Emily Caravantes graduate early, so I would take a motion, please. I failed as the grown-up in the room, y'all, sorry.
I move approval of the 2-semester early graduation request for Emily Caravantes at the completion of the 2024-2025 school year upon successful completion of all graduation requirements.
Second.
Thank you. All right, Katie and then Liz. I don't even want to take questions because we all know this was my goof up, so please call the vote.
Ms. Rohde.
Aye.
Mrs. Huff.
Aye.
Mrs. Kumru,
Aye.
Mrs. Richards,
Aye.
Mrs. Kraus.
Aye.
All right, Emily, wherever you are, congratulations again. All right, oops, doodle, y'all. Okay, policy review. Jason, please take us away.
Okay, we've got some that are probably okay the way we're written, we've got some that need some editing, so I'll kind of motor through these here. 4002, last paragraph that we had in our current policy has been changed by the policy service. In review, I would recommend that we look at making the changes and I'd be happy to bring that back up for approval at our next meeting.
All righty.
Okay, next.
Questions, we're good there? Keep rolling.
4004, this one is employment of relatives, domestic partners. No changes to this policy are recommended at this time. 4005, communication between the board and district employees. Again, this has seen some changes to it by our policy service and I would concur with their change. Basically says employees have the same right as any other public person, or any other person. If they want to come in and address the board and public comment, they certainly are able to do that. It does recommend that they go through the proper channels if they have specific employment issues. So I would recommend the red line changes to go on to the next board agenda.
And I would say that this is probably pretty close to what we do. A lot of them came before us during COVID and things like that, and we accepted their comments, so. All right, keep rolling.
4006 is, I would not recommend changes to that, nor would I recommend changes to 4007. Both policies are sound as written. 4008, outside employment, and this is simply just a one-line addition on here. And it's pretty straightforward. Staff may not exploit professional relationships for personal gain. I think that's where we want to be with this policy for outside employment. And then 4009, restrictions on employees receiving gratuities. Change the dollar amount number on there to match what our policy service had in place. And also had one additional line change in language, an addition on there about accepting any gift which will impair their judgment. I would concur and think those are reasonable changes to policy 4009. And then finally, 4015, prohibition against employment of board members. This is kind of a substantial change. I think our old policy, or our current policy, prohibits any board member from being employed. This just states that you could not be in the position of a certified teacher, but could work as a substitute, could work as a paraprofessional. I think those are both things that would be more in line with how we view our board members, and if they so chose and wanted to work and serve one of those capacities, this policy would allow that to happen.
Alrighty.
I have one question, so for 4009 with the gratuity, is that like if they get like teacher gifts? Like if someone gives them a gift card of like $75, they have to
so-
report that
So
technically?
let's say that, well, we're going through this right now, that we have, math curriculum adoption. Okay, so we have someone from, a textbook company come in and say, hey, I'm gonna present on this. Oh, by the way, here's a $50 gift certificate to Hy-Vee, thanks for previewing my product.
Yeah.
Is that something that's gonna, sway people? Probably not,
Mhm.
but at the same time, if we have policy in place, it's real easy for us to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. That's something that could impair my judgment.
So it's more for like that kind of thing, not like, oh, like Billy gave me a $100 gift card to Target, I gotta tell Just, or Jason now that we got that, okay.
I think more like conflict. of
Yeah,
interest.
conflict of interest, I felt, I was like,
Alrighty. Questions, comments, concerns on any of those items? Alright. Oh, does that take us to pre-adjournment stuff already?
Say it, Susie.
Rocking it along tonight, everybody. Announcements, who has announcements?
Be quiet.
Just for the future board calendar, what we have on there, there's some dates on there. Reminder again, Wednesday is, if you can attend, that'd be great. If anybody wants to speak at it, please let me know. I thought Liz did a great job at Mockingbird. Everyone, it seems like all 6 people have connections to Seymour in one way, shape, or form. So if you want to be that person or persons that want to speak at Seymour, please let me know here when we get done, and I'll get you on the agenda. If not, no pressure, we can handle it, but you know, it was nice to have a board perspective at Mockingbird. Plays coming up, you saw the advertisements there on your seating area, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be pretty exciting. And this is new, if you look at November 7th, at one point, the chamber had told us that they would not be awarding those scholarships at their banquet. They have reversed course and now are going to award those. So if the board would like to attend, the date is on there, it's November 7th. Please let me know and we'll make arrangements. We'll get everybody registered for it. And it's kind of a nice evening with a nice little meal. Is it down at the Greenery again, Jim? Do you know? Okay.
Nice.
So down at the Greenery again, it was pretty good event last time, so.
What time is that?
I think that's either 6 or 7.
We usually start at
We'll get that out to you. We can get the exact time on it. I think it's at 7.
Usually do a little actually line hour thing
Yeah.
or, you know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Let me see if I've got it on my
Things
calendar
and
already.
stuff.
Cocktail hours at 5, dinners at 6:30, programs at 7:15.
There we go.
Alright.
So please let either myself or Angie know if you want to attend, and we'll get you registered for that event. And then just future planning, November 14th, Karen Western Thanksgiving, November 19th, RHS Senior Thanksgiving. Then we've got the Board of Ed conference coming up. We're all registered for that piece of it. You're suffering from insomnia, my presentation's on Friday. That should put you right out. You need a little help with falling asleep?
Better not.
Come listen to me.
on.
So,
And then for those Thanksgiving events, since I had a baby last year during those, or right after those, right before those, are those like we come as like a guest, or do you guys need help? Is that like we help, do you need help serving food, or we just
We'd
kind of show
love if you
up?
come as a guest.
The
Okay.
Karen Muster one is the cutest. You
Yep.
get to sit at the
So
table with the
fun.
kids.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Okay.
It
I will
has
love
to
that.
be one of my favorite meals of the
It is
entire
fun,
month.
yeah, it is
It is
fun.
so fun.
Okay, perfect, so come ready to eat.
Yep.
Sounds good.
I'm ready to eat.
Engage with the
We'll get-
kids.
Yes, oh, that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll get the times out to you once that gets a little bit closer, so. Last thing I've got before we call for adjournment,
Let's do it.
I'm gonna be out of town for a couple days, so.
Oh,
I'm gonna take off this week and
Oh my gosh.
So, hearts.
Party
we're
for.
gonna go, we're gonna go Pine Mountain somewhere, so. I maybe have some spotty coverage where we're at, but, yeah, we're gonna go do something.
You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be
It's gonna be
alright.
okay.
Just
Nice.
okay. Let it
Do
go.
it.
Okay.
It's gonna be okay. Okay.
Gonna have to share a room with a severe allergy sufferer, so we'll see how that goes. This is gonna be the last vacation I ever take. We're gonna try it. Hopefully the clear air out there will help. So,
Load up on Zyrtec.
something.
Can you tell how
And on
excited he is?
that wonderful note, okay?
Good lord.
Okay,
I can't
guys.
wait to go on vacation.
I would take my favorite motion, y'all.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Alright, that was Liz and then Katie. Please call the vote.
Mrs. Kraus,
Aye.
Mrs. Richards,
Aye.
Ms. Rudy,
Aye.